Welcome to the Educating Children of Color Summit for 2021. This is the first time this summit has been presented 100% virtually. We are glad you are joining us and look forward to sharing with you. I'm Serena Vogel, a restorative justice practitioner and coach with the Youth Transformation Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm retired from 30 years as a middle school counselor and teacher. I was trained in restorative justice conferencing in 2005, and in 2018 I was trained in the practice of connection circles. My interest in restorative practices came as a result of a desire to find alternative ways to help students work through the harms that they've caused. Pink slips and detention and banishment from school and class were not effective and actually caused harm and never helped students learn the impact of the harm that they cause or how to repair it. Restorative justice conferences serve as an effective way to help students learn from and repair the harms that they caused, and therefore are less likely to repeat them. I believe that it is much better to prevent a harm whenever possible. So getting trained in connection circles was yet another tool in my toolbox. Connection circles are a process and a way of having a conversation that helps create healthy relationships and build empathy. Through storytelling and deep listening, truth and healing can be experienced. Sitting in a circle with people has been some of the most powerful moments of my career as an educator. Today, I'll be sharing with you some of the best practices in circle keeping, which will prepare you to view a demonstration circle we did on the topic of racism. Given the times we are living in right now, we felt that this circle was timely and important. There are many purposes for restorative circles. The demonstration circle we are presenting here is called a restorative listening circle. The sole purpose of it is to grant all participants an equal opportunity to listen to one another deeply and heartfully. Listening circles provide a structure for having conversation, especially with difficult and emotionally charged topics. We live in a time right now of extreme division in our views and opinions and theories to explain the horrible things happening in our world. Families, friends, and colleagues have ended relationships because they cannot or are not willing to listen to each other. Perhaps they don't know how to have a safe conversation effectively. Often our default setting is to listen to respond, rather than to listen to learn, connect with, and understand one another. These are the skills that we all have to learn. Listening circles give us this opportunity for learning and experience. Here are some quotes on listening that I would like to share with you. Listening is accepting, but not necessarily agreeing. It's about being present to one another. Deep listening is the kind of listening that can relieve the suffering of another person. Please note that this video and demonstration circle is not a training, and it is not intended that people who are not trained in circle keeping will be ready to facilitate listening circles. This is for demonstration purposes only. If you are interested in learning more about becoming a circle keeper in your school, workplace, or community, the Youth Transformation Center has created some online trainings. You can learn more about them on our website at youthtransformationcenter.org. Other resources related to circle keeping will accompany these training videos on our website in the form of electronic handouts. Included in this demonstration video are the use of concepts and practices from Marshall Rosenberg's work on nonviolent communication, the Compassionate Listening Project's Fundamentals of Compassionate Listening, and the Essential Partners work on public conversations. So now I want to share what you will see in our demonstration circle, the 9 important elements. Again, if you want to learn more about circle keeping and why we use the elements that we do, please visit our website at youthtransformationcenter.org to get more information about our training videos. The first element is the welcome. It's a general practice to welcome everyone to the space and to thank them for being there. Our next element, the mindful moment, allows everyone an opportunity to focus on the present moment and leave everything else from their day outside the circle experience. There are many ways to do this. All the things we use come from the practice of mindfulness. Our next element is the guidelines. These set the stage for creating as safe a space as possible. We don't refer to them as rules. They are guidelines for expected behavior during the circle experience. It is best to ask for consensus and agreement. If any participant has a concern about any of the guidelines, they are invited to share that concern and get feedback from the rest of the group. It is also a good practice to see if anyone has any other guidelines they would like to add and get consensus on that. The opening ceremony is also another important element of the circle keeping process. This can be a quote, a reading, or an activity to set the stage for the topic of the circle. Our next element is the check-in round. This is a way to check in with the participants and can be done in a variety of ways, depending on how well the participants know each other or not, how long the circle has been meeting, etc. In today's circle, we will have 4 questions to be answered as part of the check-in. Our next element we call rounds. These are questions written specifically to the theme or the topic of the circle. Much care has gone into them. The next element is the closing round. This helps to close the circle by asking what participants found meaningful or thought about the circle. It can synthesize what was said and felt during the time and space. I'd like to share a few notes about our demonstration circle with you. This group had never met in circle prior to this experience. We did plan it together since we were making this video for the Educating Children of Color Summit. Our answers to the questions were not previously rehearsed, although we did each have them in advance of the circle so that we had time to reflect. Each of us came away from this time together feeling more connected and having understood each other's perspectives on the topic. It was so powerful. May this time be supportive to you as you view the listening circle on racism. Contact information for the Youth Transformation Center, as well as some of the written handouts, will be available to you at the end of this session, should you wish to learn more about what we do.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for being here. This is a special time today as we are doing a demonstration circle for the Educating Children of Color Conference, which is all virtual this year. The theme of our listening circle today is dedicated to us sharing our thoughts and feelings about recent racial injustice events. And the first thing that I'm going to do to kind of ground us in our time together is a mindful moment. And this is called the 5 senses activity. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is to just look around and notice 5 things with your eyes. Just notice them. And maybe try to pick out something you don't normally notice when you're in a space. And the second thing is to notice 4 things that you can feel right now. So may it be the clothing against your body and the chair making contact with each other, things like that. What are 4 things that you feel? What are 3 things that you can hear?
What I'm going to share with you guys is the 5 guidelines of the circle plan. The first thing is speak from the heart. That means speak not only with your head and ideas, but with your feelings. Number 2, listen from the heart. Try to listen without judgment, which is really important, right? Because we want everybody to be open. 3, speak spontaneously. Wait until your turn to speak before you decide what you are going to say. Trust that the right words or the right silence will come to you when needed. 4, without feelings rushed, say just enough. So we don't want to get into where I guess we're oversharing, right? We want to say what we mean and mean what we say. 5, welcome and expect different contradictory points of views. Those are our 5 guidelines.
My opening ceremony for today is a quote by Besser van der Kolk, who is a trauma researcher and a best-selling author and psychiatrist. And he says that social support is the most powerful protection against becoming overwhelmed by stress and trauma. Social support is not the same as merely being in the presence of others. The critical issue is reciprocity, being truly heard and seen by the people around us, feeling that we are held in someone else's mind and heart. And I like that because I think that it really kind of sums up and sets the stage for us to have a listening circle with each other today. And I'll pass it back over to you.
So we're gonna have a check-in round before we get into the meat of the conversation. The check-in round includes everybody sharing their name and how do you feel about being in this circle. We try to keep it to about one sentence, really brief. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and start on my right. Please share your name and how you feel about being in the circle.
Good morning, I'm Malcolm Miller. I feel honored to be in the circle. One apprehension I might have is that people won't listen. And the one hope that I have is that people do listen.
I'm Marty Tolan, and I feel honored and very grateful to be part of a very important and at times difficult topic. I do feel honored to be here. Mild trepidation of just the unknown, fear of the unknown, and people that I'm meeting for the first time.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hendricks, and I'm excited to be here in this circle regarding this topic, and no apprehensions or concerns, just want everyone to be honest and open, be willing to listen and to learn.
I'm Serena Vogel, and I work for the Youth Transformation Center. I think that I feel sometimes a little bit nervous about saying the wrong thing. And my hope is that I will be authentic in spite of that fear and say what's really on my heart.
And I'm Joaquin Mobley, the Vice President of Community Works, as well as a serial entrepreneur. I am the circle keeper as well as a facilitator for this beautiful program that we're putting together for you all today. How I feel about being in this circle, I'm not really apprehensive about it. I'm actually eager to get to it. This discussion I feel like is long overdue and needs to happen. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and kick off round one. So there's been a lot of stuff going on, specifically in a lot of communities of color as of late during this whole year. So we're going to bring up one of the topics that has been very potent in the community lately. And we're going to talk about a young man who was recently killed by a police officer here in Colorado Springs by the name of Devon Bailey. So we're going to ask, what did you think and feel about when Devon Bailey was killed? Let's start to my right.
I think and feel about Devon Bailey about the same way that I felt for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, those that have been named, that we've seen and those that we haven't heard of. It's a frustrating feeling. It's not a shocking feeling because growing up as an African American man, I've seen these things happen to men and women that look like me for so long that it becomes one of those things where it's not a shock. It's just disappointing. And it's frustrating because it seems like we're still stuck in this cycle of society that we have these same issues that we've been having for a long time.
So I certainly appreciate Malcolm's perspective. Certainly being an African American male is totally different than being an African American female. Absolutely. My parents didn't have to have that conversation with us. And so I've got 2 girls, so I haven't had to have the conversation with them other than making sure that you watch where you're going, watch the company that you're keeping, and those types of things. So, the overall impact, I think, is different based on who you are and where you grew up and your background and things of that nature. So some of the things I haven't experienced. I have never been pulled over for because I was black. Been pulled over because I didn't have my turn signal on in the turn lane, which was stupid, but you follow, you just, okay. But so sometimes the impact is different, even amongst racial groups, because the assumption is that we all experience the same thing, and we don't all experience the same thing. I had a conversation with my husband about this whole situation, and he grew up in Tennessee and outside of and in Detroit, and I asked him, what impact have some of these types of situations had on you? And he said, the boys and I, used to romp and run and do things we knew that potentially would get us in trouble, but we built relationships with cops. We built relationships in the community. And so when police officers would come around, we say, hey, we got it. Things under control or whatever. He said, but those are the types of things that they did to protect themselves, to keep safe in the communities, simply because they knew of the things that were happening all around those environments. So the impact I think on me is more so that if we don't build relationships with folks, we never really get to know who people are.
But something Malcolm said made me realize, and I just thought of it here, was there's a time years ago as a teenager, long before I moved to Colorado Springs, where I was kind of playing the fool. I was doing stupid things into the community. What I was doing is not important. I'm not going to go into that. But suffice it to say, I was a knucklehead. I got stopped by the police. I gave them a hard time. Because I was just young and I was foolish and didn't have the advantage of life experience behind me. And I bring this up just to make the point that I never once did it ever crossed my mind to fear the police. I don't know what that was like. I never had to worry that me being a knucklehead was going to elicit an extreme counter response. It never even entered my mind. So and I bring that up to realize that, I was raised as who I am as a white male in middle class Midwest America.
Well, I think that the impact that I'm experiencing is different now than it was what I thought it was a few hours ago. Listening to everybody's experiences and perspectives, and knowing the lens through which I look at life and the lenses through which I look at what happens to other people, I know that I have not been touched the way that you guys have been touched by racism. Having friends die, and knowing people, and knowing students, and knowing these kids, I haven't really been touched that way. So today, I feel very touched, because I sit here with you all, hearing your experiences and your stories. And I've heard some of Malcolm's stories. We've been in circle together, talking about racism and talking about, I've just been privileged to hear some of your experiences. And that's what drew me to call you and say, I need you to be a part of this, because you've touched and have an impact. And I was not gonna cry today, but I'm the great-great-granddaughter of slaveholders. That's a part of my history. I didn't have a part of it, but it's in my family, right? So, that adds another layer of lens to which I look at things. I don't like it that this is a part of my family history, but it is what it is. I can't change it.
With every time we see stuff like this, it always makes me think about how I'm viewed amongst society and when I'm out in public. I've had people look at me and treat me differently because of how I look. I've had people look at me and feel threatened because I look a certain way. My voice carries a certain kind of way. I don't have a friendly voice. I guess to say my voice is kind of strong and has a rasp to it that makes people uncomfortable sometimes. Try to smile at everybody. Try to make it. Try to code switch your way. You try to like make people feel as comfortable as they can around you. Whether it's professionally, I know how I look, I know how I sound, so I'm very mindful of the things that I say. And that's all exacerbated by the things that I've seen. When I was growing up, my parents, you hit 5th, 6th grade and you have that, the sex ed talk. We didn't have that talk. We had the race talk. And the main thing was do whatever it is you have to do to make it home.
It makes me think of like, what else do we have to demonstrate to show you that we're all humans? We're not 3/5 human. We're all humans. How do we establish that humanity? And it's like, going back to what you were talking about when you were talking about like your voice. I have a deep voice as well. And I find myself, like when I was in college, going into certain rooms, changing the octave of my voice. Just so I can make another individual feel comfortable. Like I can't even really be my true self, right? And it drives you insane. Some people just don't recover from it. So the impact is like, what's next? I don't know what's going to happen next, right? None of us do. But we know from history, it hasn't been good.
To really, what is their point of view? A lot of them, they're scared. They see this out there, and I walked in. That's one of the most heartbreaking things, and it led into an age-appropriate conversation. But I'm one of the 2 armed positions at the Harrison School District. So I go in and I check in the school. Happened to be Pikes Peak Elementary. A young black kindergarten boy walked up to me. You know what the first thing he asked me was? Are you going to shoot me? I almost cried. I broke my heart. And so I'm there, and so we had a conversation about, I wouldn't hurt you. I will protect you. And try and met that from the heart, to try to just make them understand. And at an early age, that it's so hard because they're being bombarded with seeing all these examples of racial inequality. And it's affecting them. Even if the kids are a student, they don't miss much. They take that in and they see it. And, even if they don't verbalize or have that ability to articulate, it's resonating deeply with them, and it's harmful.
This is a poem that I use a lot. So Malcolm, you may have heard this already. It's called Turning to One Another, and it's written by Margaret Wheatley. And it says, there is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Ask what's possible, not what's wrong. And keep asking. Notice what you care about and assume that many others share your dreams. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know, talk to people you don't know, and talk to people that you never talk to. Be intrigued by the differences that you hear and expect to be surprised. Treasure curiosity more than certainty. Invite in everybody who cares to work on what's possible. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections. Remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together. Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world. Rely on human goodness and stay together.